Yarasqanı qıynaydı yedem tuzunun jattena.
Human rights. Again, these are rights that are rights to education, rights of the child, rights of women, rights of refugees, specifically for today's discussion. The building blocks of our organization you'll see across the bottom of the presentation, and that is the foundation of RET. I mentioned already formal and non-formal education. We have education infrastructure and equipment in our programs as well. We're there to provide quality and accreditation of education programs. We're there to prevent and respond to violence, exploitation, and abuse against girls and women and youth. We provide not livelihoods programs in the sense of livelihoods, teaching formally and non-formally, livelihood opportunities, building the bridges to employability, building bridges to actual employment. And we're there to provide technical assistance related to the different ministries, Ministry of Education, sometimes Ministry of Family, Ministry of Women, Ministry of Labor, and to provide this technical assistance and capacity buildings to the ministries of the host governments. And we're there for also prevention of conflict and peace building, which is very critical among the young groups, and very, very basic life skills, psychosocial support, overcoming the traumas of the political conflicts and violence and wars of which the young people and our refugees have experienced. And then finally, in the area of natural disasters, we're working in disaster risk reduction and preparedness, and working with the various ministries of education and other ministries around the world to ensure that the capacities of the ministries are built, and that the education system, the schools around the world, are very prepared for whether it's annual flooding or frequent flooding of the rivers in their areas, or earthquakes, or whatever may be the natural disasters in the particular geographies we're working in. Having said that, just want to recap, we have had 1.2 million students in our programs around the world since the inception of RET in the last 17 years. We've worked in 29 countries, from Africa to Latin America to Afghanistan, the Middle East, and the only places we don't work are in Europe, and we don't work in the United States. We have offices to engage with the different governments in those countries, but we don't have operations on the ground because, as Mrs. Ogata's initial intention, the greatest help is needed in Africa, the greatest help is needed in Latin America, the greatest help is needed in Afghanistan, and in many of the fragile contexts throughout Asia as well. So we feel very strongly to stay dedicated to the original mandate of the RET in that sense, and so we continue to operate mainly in the other continents. We've had 6 million beneficiaries indirect in total, because as we say typically, one girl child influences the life and teaches 5 others. So that's how we count 6 million indirect beneficiaries. And we have a staff of now, I have to say, an update to this chart, a staff of 1,300 young people around the world. And of that staff of 1,300, I'm very, very, very proud to say that only about 20 are expatriates. The rest, the nearly 1,300, are all local staff, because we feel strongly about building capacity of the local staff and ensuring that the local staff flourish and make our programs sustainable, because they can continue, once we leave the crisis areas, they can continue to keep everything going. I'm going to start with an example first in Afghanistan. Our emphasis today, rather than youth, is more on women because of the subject of our panel here. So I will present to you various examples of strong, successful socioeconomic empowerment programs we've had around the world. Afghanistan is the first country. I've traveled there well over a dozen times myself in establishing these programs. It's a wonderful country. And the women there are absolutely hungry to learn and to improve themselves and to be strong and self-reliant. We have provided learning centers for these women. We have provided access to education at the request of the Ministry of Education in Afghanistan. And we have provided them an opportunity for self-reliance in the sense of creating income-generating activities and teaching them various different livelihoods. We have opened 20 women community learning centers in the last 9 years. And we've added this year 6 more centers for those returning Afghans, those returning from Europe, asked specifically by the various European governments whether we can do this, as we've been so successful with the women's programs that we have there. So now we have actually 26 centers, 20 of them devoted exclusively to women, 6 of them devoted to families, to ensuring that the families are well integrated back into Afghanistan so that the women are able to work and be self-reliant. The young children or teenagers, the youth, are in school system or at least in non-formal education, and working with the local authorities and the various ministries to also ensure that their husbands, their fathers, their brothers also have an opportunity for their occupations and building their lives and building, hopefully, what will be longer-term careers in Afghanistan. What we provide in the women's centers, to emphasize that once again, is we provide the hardware, renovation of buildings and equipment, and to make the program sustainable, we work with the local government to ensure that the buildings are government-owned buildings or locally owned by local population there, and provided to us by the community. This makes the program more sustainable, and this ensures that the community has a sense of ownership to the program itself. It is not a RET program. RET is appreciated, but long-term it is a program that they feel accountable for themselves and are very proud of. The software is also accredited by the Ministry of Education, which means what? The entire curriculum that we present, whether it's formal education or non-formal, is again authorized, approved, endorsed, and wholeheartedly and emotionally supported by the Ministry of Education. They're very, very happy with our relationship, and they ensure that we invite them, they're included in our monthly meetings. The representatives from the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Women, Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs, all attend our monthly meetings, attend our classes, attend our sessions, and are part of the community and are part of the management of the programs themselves. This way, when the program duration of typically 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, when it's over, the programs are the community center, the learning center, and the program itself, including the content of the program, is handed over to the local community and the various relevant ministries. Again, ensuring sustainability. So in the last 9 to 10 years in Afghanistan, I say we have 26 centers in a country that is really extremely difficult to work in. But when I travel there, when I visit there, I'm most welcome as a Turkish Muslim sister, welcome by the Shura, welcome by the imams, welcome by the governors, welcome by all the local authorities. That's because we're there to provide programs that are relevant to them, that are prioritized by them, and they feel ownership and accountability. So I am moving ahead. More specifically, as I've mentioned, if we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. It's a build slide, so I'll just repeat here. We work with the families and the local authorities, and that's the key to success, is that while it is a center for women, dedicated to women, we don't want it to seem mysterious and secretive. No, the center is open to the community, and you can continue building the slide, please. I'll just continue telling the story. The center is open to everybody. That means during the day, the center is formally dedicated to the women. But in the afternoons, the center, the men are welcome to come see. It's transparent, to come see what's there, to see what we're teaching, to witness what is done in terms of the children have a kindergarten to attend, and the children work with their own teachers. And so the children have an opportunity to also learn, to be fed, to have a meal or 2 meals, while the mother is actually learning and having her proper formal or non-formal education, depending on the courses that we're providing. So it is extremely family-friendly. And what has happened is that by opening and being very transparent in the centers to the male members of the families, the community has a great deal of respect for the program, and the fathers, the husbands, the brothers welcome the program and endorse and encourage their daughters, their wives, their sisters to attend the center and to learn at the center. This is a very critical point. So this type of acceptance and showing cultural understanding to the community in which we work is really critical. We go on. We provide teacher training as well in these communities, so that the teachers in these communities have a chance to have the utmost pedagogic training that they possibly can. And we ensure that we focus heavily on the female teachers to make sure that the women attending our programs are properly addressed by female teachers, as is the custom in Afghanistan. Again, I repeat, as I did in the beginning of the presentation, we are not there to create a cultural change. We are there to respect the local culture. We are there to say, yes, we want to help the women. We want to provide education. We want to empower the women through education. We want to help provide self-reliance for these women so they are able to financially deliver to their families and able to financially support. Perhaps there is no husband, there is no brother, no father, they may have died in the war, but that these women can stand on their own or stand together with the men in their families and be able to provide and help their husbands or brothers or fathers. So, we continue on to the next slide. In providing this ability to have income generation for the women, we give a business administration course. So how to set up a small business, how to identify a target audience, how to market your business, how to keep financial records, how to, in essence, bookkeeping, and how to expand the business as it grows over time. So it is an iterative process, but we really teach all the fundamentals and the basics. We give computer classes. We give career counseling. So obviously before the business administration course, we interview with psychologists and we interview with the counselors and the teachers working there, what potential that the women actually have and what they prefer, and what the geography of the area in which they live allows them to grow. So can they grow vegetables? Can they grow fruit? Can they make confiture? Can they make marmalade? You know, sweets? Grow tomatoes. I mean, whatever is allowed by the geography and topography around them. So this is very important in the career counseling. And then next, our biggest step is to ensure that we're building bridges for these women. And while we're teaching them to set up their business, we also make sure that there are microloan organizations, because we cannot provide the cash as microloans, that we work with the banks and the other organizations to help them to set up their business. And usually this small amount of capital is all they need to be able to launch. And so we provide that bridge for them. Let's move on to Lebanon. I'm going to be, just so for a sense of timing here, I'm going to be talking about Lebanon and Latin America, and I'll touch upon Turkey, and if there's time, I'll continue that way. For Lebanon, we had a similar program as we do in Afghanistan. Afghanistan, for us, was really the fundamentals. It was my dream country in Afghanistan. To succeed there, I knew if I could succeed in Afghanistan, we could build our programs everywhere around the world. Lebanon, we created the project I should say around 2011, 2012, just after the Syrian crisis had started, and there was a large inflow of Syrian women into Lebanon. Lebanon already has about 18 different ethnic groups who live in Lebanon, and the Syrian refugee population is actually group number 19 So it's a very, very diverse country, very diverse in number of religions and number of cultural and ethnic backgrounds. So Lebanon is also an extremely challenging environment to work and to ensure that there is peace among the communities and that there is social cohesion and integration within our programs. So let's move on to the next slide. In Lebanon, what we first experienced was the big challenge of Lebanese and Syrian women not wanting to come to the same centers. The Lebanese women said, no, we don't want the Syrian women in our centers. And there's a bit of history, unfortunately political history in Lebanon that encouraged that type of attitude. And so we started first by having a common cause. And the common cause to bring everyone together was to protect these women from violence, to protect the women from home violence in the home, and violence in the community. And amongst the definition of violence, in some cases, the forced early marriages. So when we started teaching about these subjects and this gender-based violence issues, the women started to realize that they had many things in common, that it wasn't important that they were Lebanese Sunni or Lebanese Shia or Armenian or whatever cultures and backgrounds and religions they came from. They realized that the problems they had were shared amongst each other. And they started to open up and talk about them together. Then we started to create opportunities in the centers where we would have lunches, and the different women would they would cook their own meals and come together and serve each other. And this broke down the barriers, and this helped a great deal. So this awareness raising on the issue of gender-based violence, forced early marriages, allowed us to come together to create an environment of social cohesion and eventually lead towards integration. This program has now been going on for the last 5 years, and we're engaging and empowering mothers and fathers of adolescent girls, young women, brothers, husbands, and really the entire community to work together. Let's go to the next slide. Yes, hurry up. Yes, thank you. Vocational training, again, very similar to what I was describing in Afghanistan. So our program, our model continues, and this has worked effectively in Lebanon as well. So let's go to the next slide on Latin America and the Caribbean. Okay, very good. Slightly different in Latin America and the Caribbean. There we work in 8 different countries. We started first in Ecuador, then Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, Venezuela, and we have now reached up to Belize and Mexico, getting closer and closer to the wall of the United States. And the United States the government is our main donor there, and the whole purpose of the program is to build self-reliance in the Latin America and Central America territories, and to make sure that the refugees are not moving upstream and moving into the United States. So for us, that's wonderful because we believe in working in the regions of origin. And so what we have done there is focused our programs heavily on the women, the mothers, the single head of households, often who have lost their husbands again to the narco-trafficking gangs. The violence in Central and South America is very different than the violence here in other parts of the world, in Africa and the Middle East and in Asia. The violence is really, really heavily focused, not so much on politics anymore as it is the narco-trafficking. So many of these women have no men in their lives. They are independent, single head of households. We took a holistic approach and we said in our centers, we have psychologists and social workers, and we interview them. We interview the mother, the young children in the family, and the teenagers. And we provide a holistic program for the entire family. And we help to build the capacity of these women, as described also in Afghanistan and Lebanon, by identifying a specific life plan for the mother, the single head of household. And this life plan helps to build her self-esteem and to create ultimately then a business plan. So the life plan comes first, the business plan comes second, and we act as literally consultants through the entire process of setting up the small business for these women. And I'll give the example. There was one woman who made car seats. And she came to us in Ecuador, and we thought this was unusual because typically the businesses we create for the women together with them is baking bread, fruit juice in Latin America, businesses where they have fruit juice related products. And this was unusual. So we said, okay, car seats, automobile seats. Now, today, this started as a micro enterprise 5 years ago. Today, she is selling car seats to General Motors. So she's a major supplier to General Motors. So it is possible. When you have hope, it is absolutely possible. So I will make the transition then, thank you very much, I will make the transition then from Latin America back to this part of the world and to Turkey specifically. Let's move quickly through the slides, thank you. Okay, why Turkey? In Turkey, RET is not just called RET International, but it is also called by what we stand for in English as Relief Education in Transition. That's our new definition of RET through the years. And in Turkey, it's Rehberlik, Eğitim, Toplumsal Yardımlaşma ve Kalkınma Derneği. And why that? Because the context in Turkey is slightly different. We wanted to be here for long term, we wanted to be sustainable, and we wanted to ensure, and I think we lost the audio, okay. We wanted to be sure that our programs working with the Syrian refugee women, and you already know the numbers, very high numbers, we knew that we were in agreement with the Turkish government that we must focus on the top priority, and that is teaching Turkish language and providing rehberlik, providing referral services to the infrastructure in the host government, which is the strongest infrastructure in the 29 countries we've worked in that I've ever witnessed. The Turkish government's hosting capacity, desire, and intentions has been an entirely welcoming environment and one that we found a delight to work with. So the infrastructure here is very, very accommodating in terms of what we teach. Step number one, teaching Turkish. Survival Turkish to the women coming from Syria so that the women can explain their problems, their experiences, their situations, and then we could refer them to the various different departments, ministries, and we've lost the audio, departments, ministries, and other services that are provided officially, formally by the Turkish government. So language skills was the priority portion of our program in Turkey. Do you prefer I stop or continue? There is translation still going on? Okay, very good. Okay, so I'll continue. So we reach out to the community. We have 180 staff in Turkey, including officially 30 Syrian staff who have their work permits and legal residencies in Turkey. We reach out to the Syrian community and ensure that the young women can come to our programs, learn the Turkish language, have information sessions on what can be provided in terms of providing assistance to them, and giving direct support in terms of protection services to them. And then we follow up very closely. So we have 180 staff doing this. We have had 134,000 both Syrian and local host community participation in our programs. And we have literally had 14,000 learners in the Turkish language program and 14,000 learners who have learned A1 level. We provide A2 level, and the goal is hopefully to provide all the way to C1 levels so that all the young Syrian community members can actually go through university education if they so have the desire. We also have a component of the program, and I'll be wrapping up here. We also have a component of the program focused on protection and prevention of gender-based violence. So if we go to the next slides. Okay. We have lots of social activities and events organized in safe spaces. And these safe spaces are defined by both the United Nations as safe spaces, by a UNICEF program, UNHCR programs, and also accepted and respected by the Turkish government. So we have lots of case management, actually, of the women. We have a lot of referrals from lots of other organizations in the southeast part of Turkey, where we're working in Gaziantep, in Şanlıurfa, and Mardin provinces. And we continue every day to receive lots of cases referred to us. We then refer these cases, of course, again within the infrastructure of the Turkish government, to the various ministry programs that exist in Turkey. Final slide, and that is something that we're extremely proud of in Turkey as well, is enhancing the value chain in terms of providing socioeconomic empowerment to women. And this has become a very special project for us. It started in Mardin, and now we're expanding throughout Turkey. The special project that we had was to
besides developing projects in the nice part of mobility, we developed a lot of projects and activities to help migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers in different fields, as training, integration, with the aim to improve their living and working conditions in Italy. In the last 2 years, we cooperated with Kadın in a project called Women on the Move, targeted at Syrian women. And the main aim of the project was to improve the living conditions of women refugees in Turkey through advocacy activities and capacity building for governmental and non-governmental institutions about human rights, law, migration, regulation on temporary protection, and all the legislation concerning asylum seekers and refugees, especially women. Another important aim of the project, equally important, was to increase the opportunity of cooperation between NGOs from Turkey and NGOs from the European Union, developing a common understanding between Turkey and Europe on refugee policies and their implementation in the European Union and in Turkey. And last but not least, the project had the aim to increase awareness and breaking prejudgments about refugees and asylum seekers in the public opinion. I would like now to present some of the key issues we identified in our project. Starting giving some data that surely every one of you know, but it's always better to remember them. According to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, in December 2015, the number of refugees, asylum seekers, and internally displaced people around the world were 65.3 million. It means that 1 in every 113 people on Earth had to leave their home because of persecution, conflicts, violence, or human rights violations. It means that each minute, 24 people around the world flee their home because of violence or persecution. It means that if the world's displaced people were their own nation, it would be larger than the United Kingdom. On March 2017, the United Nations High Commission for Refugees reported that there being a shift and that women and children represent now the majority of arrivals. As a large movement of refugees and migrants are not a new phenomenon, unfortunately, the images of the past few years are shocking the world's conscience, because TV and newspaper keep on showing boats packed with people seeking safety, women, men, and children drowning in their attempt to escape violence and poverty, fences going up at borders where people was used to cross freely, and thousands of girls and boys going missing, many of them falling prey of criminal groups. Upon arrival, the rights of those who survived the travel are often violated. Many asylum seekers and migrants are detained, and their reception is sometimes far, but very far from welcoming. Xenophobic and racist rhetoric seems to be becoming more socially and politically accepted. And despite efforts made, responses given by international, European, and national institutions have often been inadequate. Needless assistance has not always been provided in a timely and suitable manner, with negative effects both on refugees and on the community in which they live. Long-term solutions for refugees have not always been found. And being Italian, living in Italy, I really can tell you it's like this. And if one lesson can be learned from the past few years, it's that individual countries cannot solve these issues on their own. They need international cooperation and action, and this is an aspect that absolutely must be strengthened. National and collective responses must address the reasons people leave in their homes, their need for safe passage and protection, and the immediate and long-term needs of those who cross into other countries. In the absence of sufficient safe and regular pathways for moving to other countries, refugees fleeing persecution or conflicts and migrants escaping poverty are often compelled to undertake very dangerous journeys. Given the lack of alternatives, they find themselves forced to turn over their savings and put their lives in the hands of criminal networks in order to cross international borders, and many of them have lost their lives in the process. According to estimates, at least 50,000 people, including thousands of children, have died in the past 2 decades while seeking to cross international borders. Refugees and migrants also face dangerous conditions and human rights abuses all along land routes. Many of them undergo traumatic experience during their journey, including imprisonment and physical and mental violence. Children, those traveling with their own and those traveling with their families, are at particular risk during such journeys, as are pregnant women, older persons, and persons with disabilities. The risk of sexual and gender-based violence is high, and other challenges, particularly for women and girls in transit, include family separation, psychological stress and trauma, health complication, physical harm and injury, and risk of exploitation. And upon arrival at border, asylum seekers, refugees, and migrants encounter further risks. They may face problems in assessing fair and efficient individual refugee status determination procedures. In some countries, they are held in detention, sometimes for very long periods and in very bad conditions, without the possibility to exercise their rights. They also may be at risk of accelerated return without adequate safeguards or other action in violation of the non-refoulement obligation of states. Effective screening procedures are essential to manage the arrival of large number of refugees and migrants properly, but in situations of mass inflows, national capacities to identify, register, and document new arrivals and to provide them with the necessary assistance are badly stretched. Women share the protection problems experienced by all refugees. Along with all the other refugees, they need protection against forced return to their countries of origin. They need security against armed attacks and other forms of violence. They need protection for unjustified and prolonged detention. They need a legal status that ensures adequate social and economic rights. They need access to basic items such as food, shelter, clothes, and medical care. But in addition to these basic needs shared with all refugees, refugee women and girls have special protection needs that reflect their gender. They need, for example, protection against manipulation, against sexual and physical abuse and exploitation, protection against sexual discrimination in the delivery of goods and services. Displacement magnifies social problems in general and violence against women in particular. The breakdown in social and cultural structures and norms, the separation from families and the loss of family members and the traditional support networks, should I go on? See. The failure to prosecute perps of violence, all this work against the safety and security of refugees women. And given their age, refugee girls are even at greater risk of abuse. Women's security must be seen as integral to the security of the whole society, since refugee women are often responsible for the elderly, the disabled, and the children. Ensuring the protection of refugee women requires adherence to all relevant international instruments. Further, national laws and policies determine what legal status an individual receives, where she will live, and what assistance will be provided. Also, many of the offenses against women, such as rape and physical attack, are punishable by national law. Then there is a further legal framework within the national framework that is provided by the legal codes and processes adopted for internal use in refugees camps. Many investigations carried out at international and European level by institutional bodies and private organizations have led to many proposals for the implementation of holistic actions and policies to support refugees women and to tackle and prevent violence, many of which, unfortunately, however, has not still been implemented or have been only partially realized. Which are the key points that needs a further gender-sensitive implementation to tackle and prevent violence against women? I will list 6, probably there are many more, but those, to our opinion, are the most important. The registration processes and documentation, the application of refugees laws and procedures, the governance, the spaces, the services, and the connections. And we wrote down and we presented to relevant stakeholders a list of suggestions to improve the living situation of refugees women. I will rapidly go through it. So we said it's needed a gender-sensitive registration processes and documentation because assessing assistance and services and enjoying basic rights, including freedom of movement and family reunification, is often dependent on the proof of identity. Refugee women who lack adequate registration and personal documentation, example ID cards, marriage certificates, divorce certificates, birth certificates of their children, have sometimes been denied their freedom of movement and access to essential services only because they were not able to provide these documents. A gender-sensitive application of refugee law and procedure needs to be improved. 2 minutes. Even if over the past decade the understanding on how gender issues can be interpreted in refugee law has advanced both in theory and in practice. A growing number of states now ensure that female asylum seekers are offered legal advice and information about the asylum process in a manner and language they can understand. Women are encouraged to make independent and confidential application for asylum without the presence of male family members, and the number of trained female interviewers, interpreters, and decision makers has increased in many asylum systems. Nevertheless, more could be done to protect female asylum seekers. Given the lack of harmonized approaches and interpretation, an asylum seeker can be denied refugee status in one jurisdiction but obtain it in another. Without information about gender-related persecution in a woman's country of origin, it's impossible to make a valid assessment of an asylum seeker's claim for refugee status. While there has been a progress in the area of gender-related persecution in general, there are still many states that have not adopted gender-sensitive interpretation of refugee law and that have not implemented appropriate procedural safeguards to ensure that women's claims are heard. Okay, I skipped this. Let's go to the point of services. Services should be gender sensitive and address the short and long-term needs of refugee women and girls. They should be focused on the empowerment of women and enhance their independence. Women and girls should be informed about and guaranteed access to essential services throughout their migration route and upon arrival in host countries. The provision of services needs to help to overcome the multiple barriers that refugee women and girls may face when accessing services, which are linguistic, cultural, infrastructural, institutional, and so on. So, services should be low threshold, culturally grounded, and linguistically appropriate. Childcare options should be available to refugee women with children, since lack of childcare support is one of the main factors which impedes refugee women's access to services. Services should be provided by gender-sensitive staff that are trained on violence against women, gender equality, and women's empowerment. And wherever possible, services should be provided by female professionals and through the help of female interpreters. And lastly, that's all. Okay, the area of connection. Connection is a really important point because we should encourage the formation of social networks that link female refugees to women in the host society. Mentoring or buddy programs that encourage the formation of one-to-one relationship should be launched and support. The interaction of young refugees, women and girls with those in their age group should be promoted. Initiatives applying a peer-to-peer approach support an informal creative exchange among peers on an equal footing. And lastly, the voices and experience of women with a refugee or migration background should be included in the planning and implementation of projects, and their role as bridge builders should be strengthened. It is a lot more that I would have liked to say, but time is running.
Yes,
So
we see Anna.
thanks a lot for your attention.
I apologize.
Don't worry.
I apologize for this inconvenience, but they are coming and interrupting my also focus. That we have to leave the
The room.
earlier than we tried and then we actually arranged. Because our president is coming to this university and they security forces will do some work while that's why I'm sorry. And that is why I would like to also Maisa, your presentation not 15 minutes, could you conclude it in 10 minutes?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm taking 5 minutes of you, but I really apologize for that.
No problem.
And in your case, I think there is another translator in the room, so they will translate here. So after
ترجم للتركي؟
بدي أترجم للتركي لكن متعاقب وليس ترجمة فورية. للأسف الشديد تقنيا ما في إمكانية نترجم فوري.
so are you going to translate it in Turkish or
To Turkish, ma'am. Yes.
in Turkish?
Yes.
But so Maisa, you are going to talk
In Arabic.
in Arabic.
And it will be consecutive translation.
Yeah. Will it be translation in English? Because
No.
between Turkish
Yes,
and Arabic.
yes.
because
Yes.
the
That one-
gentleman's voice will be translated by
Okay.
yeah.
So he's going to translate Turkish. I mean, take it. Put it.
تمام. واصل الصوت؟ Test.
Time is yours. 10 minutes.
Yes. I don't. Yeah, my voice is okay.
Again,
I can hear you.
could you check it, please? I don't like the situation, but I'm really sorry for this inconvenience. It happens because our president is coming and we are going to listen and at the end. Thank you.
تمام. اوكي. اسمي ميساء سعيد من سوريالي هانملار درني، مسجلة رسميا في تركيا عام 2014. نعمل في اسطنبول في منطقة الفاتح، ولدينا فرع في غازي عنتاب، ونعمل نشاطات ومشاريع داخل سوريا. أنا ممنونة على المستوى الشخصي أنني موجودة في تركيا وسعيدة بأصدقائي الأتراك. Yes.
عشان بس أعرف أترجم وراك. Merhaba, benim adım
Yeah.
Merhaba, benim adım Maysa Sait ve ben Suriye Hanımlar Derneği'nde çalışıyorum. 2014 yılından beri faal olarak çalışıyoruz. İstanbul'da ve Gaziantep'te şubelerimiz var.
Başka şey tercüme yapmadım. Ben Türkiye'de, yani Türkiye'de oturuyorum. Ben çok memnun oldum. Sen tercüme yapmadın mı?
Hocam çok uzun geldi.
Tamam. Belki bazı şeyler ben konuşacağım. Belki yani. Yes. I will translate by myself some things.
أعطيني جملة عشان أراك وراك.
إيه تمام.
تعطيني.
أنا هوفر عليك شوية وقت وأعمل بعض الشغلات بالتركي، إذا صعب علي بالعربية تخربطوا. تمام.
أعطيني جملة.
لدينا 3 أقسام: دعم نفسي واجتماعي ومشاريع تشغيلية للنساء. نحن متخصصون فقط بالمرأة السورية.
Bizim 3 bölümümüz var Suriyeli kadınlarla ilgili olarak. Psikolojik destek, sosyal destek ve çalıştırma yönelik bölümlerimiz var.
استطعنا الوصول إلى 12,000 امرأة في تركيا
12.000 bayana ulaşabildik Türkiye'de.
و35,000 امرأة في سوريا.
Suriye'de de 35.000 bayana.
قدمنا 250 محاضرة في الدعم النفسي والاجتماعي.
Psikolojik ve sosyal destekle ilgili olarak 250 sunum yaptık.
مع 6500 مستفيدة.
6500 bayan bizi dinledi.
وقدمنا 50 برنامج اجتماعي ونفسي وتعليمي.
50 program uyguladık. Hem psikolojik hem sosyal hem eğitim programları olarak 50 programımızı bitirdik, uyguladık.
استفاد منها 2200 امرأة.
2200 bayan bu programlardan faydalandı.
عملنا 10 مشاريع تشغيلية لنساء السوريات في تركيا استفاد منها 717 امرأة.
10 adet projemiz var. Çalıştırmaya yönelik 10 adet projemiz var ve 717 bayan, Türkiye'de ikamet eden 717 Suriyeli bayan bu programlardan faydalandı.
أهم المشاريع التي تشرف عليها مؤسسة إشراقات o Suriyeli Hanımlar Derneği yani.
Suriye Hanımlar Derneği'nin en önemli projelerinden biri.
الأسر المنتجة يعني تشغيل الأسر.
Yani çalışan aileler projesi.
كسوة الشتاء.
Kış giysileri.
مشاغل الخياطة.
Terzilik atölyeleri.
Evet. ومشروع المونتيسوري نظام التعليم الحديث.
Yeni eğitim sistemi. Suriye yeni eğitim sistemi.
Evet, Montessori sistemi.
Montessori sistemi. Pardon, duyamadım.
لدينا قاعدة بيانات من 4000 استبيان.
Bir database'imiz var. 4000 formdan oluşan database'imiz var.
Evet, 4000 anket. Tamam.
Anket.
Evet. وعملنا دراسة علمية إحصائية متكاملة عن ضرورة تقديم خدمات الدعم النفسي للعائلات المكفولة ماديا.
Entegre bir çalışma yaptık ve maddi yönden iyi durumda olan ailelerle ilgili kapsamlı bir çalışmamız var.
العائلات المكفولة ماديا هي التي لا معيل لها أو التي تكون المرأة هي المعيلة.
Buradaki ailelerden kastımız para alacağı olmayan, daha doğrusu para kazanacağı olmayan aileler veya annelerin para getirdiği, annelerin para kazandığı aileler.
بعض الأهداف التي حققناها على السريع.
Yapabildiğimiz hedeflerden bazısı çok kısaca söyleyeceğim.
تحسين الصحة النفسية للمرأة السورية.
Suriyeli kadınların psikolojik sağlığının yerine getirilmesi, iyileştirilmesi.
طبعا هذا فقط للنساء الذين استفادوا من خدماتنا لأن عدد النساء في تركيا السوريات كبير جدا نحن لا نستطيع الوصول إليهم جميعا يعني.
Tabii biz sadece bize ulaşabilen bayanların sağlığından, psikolojik sağlığından bahsediyoruz. Türkiye'de birçok Suriyeli bayan var ve hepsine ulaşamıyoruz. Bize ulaşana yardımcı olmaya çalışıyoruz.
ساهمنا بسياسة الاندماج بين المرأة السورية والتركية عن طريق إعطاء كورسات لغة تركية وعن طريق لقاءات بين نساء سوريات وأتراك.
Türkçe kursları ve Türk bayanlarla Suriyeli bayanların ortak oturmaları, ortak tartışmaları sayesinde Suriyeli bayanların Türk toplumuna entegrasyonu için çalıştık.
تحسين الوضع المعيشي لما يقارب من 800 امرأة وإيجاد فرص عمل ل 150 امرأة.
800 kadının hayatsal durumlarının daha iyi olması, hayati durumlarının daha iyi olması için uğraştık. 150 bayana da iş bulduk.
ساعدنا في إيجاد كوادر نسائية فعالة.
Çalışan, efektif bayanlardan oluşan takımlarımız, arkadaşlarımız, yurttaşlarımız var.
بسرعة أنا سأتكلم عن وضع المرأة السورية في تركيا. نحن حسب إحصاءات إشراقات عملنا إحصاءات ل 1500 امرأة أكثر من 56% منهم معهم مستوى تعليم عالي يعني جامعة أو معهد.
Çok hızlıca konuşacağım. 1500 bayan hakkında, Suriyeli bayan hakkında istatistiksel bilgi topladık. ilginçtir. %56'sından fazla, bu bayanların %56'sından fazla üniversite ve üstü eğitime sahip.
هذا فقط في إسطنبول.
Bu sadece İstanbul'da.
يعني في المخيمات نحن لدينا فرع في المخيم النسبة معكوسة 5% فقط هم جامعيات.
Kamplarda ise bizim kamplarda da bir şubemiz var. Tamamen tersi bir durumdan bahsediyoruz. Kamplardaki bayanların sadece %5'i üniversite mezunu.
هذه النسبة تعطينا مؤشر مهم جدا أنه يجب الاستثمار في المرأة السورية واستثمار في مشاريع تخص المرأة السورية.
Bu çok önemli bir istatistik. Bu istatistiğin bize gösterdiği şu ki Suriyeli kadınları eğitmemiz, Suriyeli kadınlara yatırım yapmamız lazım.
أنا أريد فقط أن أقول نقطة مهمة جدا للمجتمع المضيف.
Siz konuk topluma çok önemli bir şey söylemek istiyorum.
ربما بعض السوريين يتضايقون من كلمة لاجئ.
Bazı Suriyeliler mülteci kelimesi, mülteci sözünden incinebilir.
نحن نريد أن نعيش حياة طبيعية. الآن نحن بلا وطن.
Biz normal bir hayat yaşamak istiyoruz. Biz vatansızız.
وفي داخل سوريا الوطن يقتلهم كل
Ve
يوم.
Suriye'nin içinde vatanımız bizi öldürüyor her gün.
وكل يوم يوجد موت وقتل.
Her gün ölüm haberleri duyuyoruz.
نحن نريد أن نعيش حياة طبيعية. لذلك
Biz
الأفضل
normal bir hayat yaşamak istiyoruz. Onun için bizce en iyisi
الأفضل أن يكون لفظ ربما مهاجرين أو صيغة أخرى للتعامل معنا. والأسلوب الأمثل للتعامل معنا هو نحن نستفيد وأنتم تستفيدوا يعني win to win.
bize mülteci denmesinden daha iyi, bize daha az incitecek olan bir kelime kullanmak bizi daha mutlu edecektir. Göçmenler veya muhacirler kelimesi. Bir de win, siz de kazanacaksınız, inanın biz de kazanacağız. Win-win durumu var burada.
أنا أدعو المجتمعات المضيفة إلى الاستثمار في المرأة السورية. المرأة السورية ذكية وعاقلة وتحتاج إلى فرص. جهدنا نحن لا يكفي وجهد الكثير من المؤسسات لا يكفي. الأعداد كبيرة جدا لذلك استثمروا في النساء السوريات لأنهن ذكيات وفعالات.
Konuk toplum olarak size bir çağrım var. Suriyeli kadınlar akıllıdır, Suriyeli kadınlar çalışkandır, efektiftir, üretkendir. Suriyeli kadınlara yatırım yapın. Suriyeli kadınlara yatırım yaptığınız zaman toplum olarak inanın siz de, konuk toplum olarak siz de faydalanacaksınız.
أنا شخصيا أعرف أكثر من 50 مشروع تديره نساء سوريات في تركيا على المستوى الشخصي.
Ben şahsi olarak benim bildiğim 50'ye yakın proje, 50'ye yakın yatırım imkanı gördüm ve hepsi de Suriyeli kadınların evirdiği, çevirdiği, idare ettiği, müdürlüğünü yaptığı projeler, başarılı projeler bunlar.
يوجد نقاط إيجابية كثيرة لوجودنا في تركيا ويوجد أيضا نقاط سلبية كثيرة ربما لا يوجد معي وقت كثير لأذكرها ولكن من النقاط الإيجابية يوجد اندماج يعني يوجد كيف نقول يعني اندماج مع المجتمع التركي وسأعطي أمثلة.
Zamanım fazla değil, fazla da örnek veremiyorum. Fakat şunu söyleyebilirim ki bizim Suriyeli olarak Türkiye'de olmamızın pozitif yönleri de var, negatif yönleri de var. Fazla detaylandıramayacağım. Fakat benim gördüğüm en güzel pozitif yön bizim Türk halkına yaptığımız entegrasyon ve iç içe girmişliğimiz.
One minute. أوكي. مركز الإحصاء التركي قال بأنه في 2015 احتلت المرأة السورية المرتبة الأولى في الزواج من أتراك. 3600 امرأة سورية تزوجوا من رجال أتراك.
3500
3600 في عام 2015 احتلت المركز الأول وفق مركز الإحصاء التركي.
Türk İstatistik Enstitüsü'ne göre bilmiyorum. TİK mi bilmiyorum. TÜİK verilerine göre 2015 yılında Suriyeli 3600 Suriyeli kadın Türk vatandaşlarıyla evlenmiş. 2015 yılından bahsediyoruz.
هذا مثال على الاندماج الإيجابي.
Bu pozitif entegrasyon ve iç içe girmişliğin bir örneğidir bence.
آخر دقيقة
son
دقيقة يعني في مشاكل لازم يتم علاجها بالنسبة للمرأة السورية مشاكل الطلاق والزواج والمرأة الثانية أيضا بعض المشكلات الثقافية. أيضا هناك أحيانا تمييز تعاني منه المرأة والطفل السوري. هناك ممكن أعطيك وقت؟ تأخذ وقت ولا كمل؟
لا خلينا نكمل.
يلا.
Tabii Suriyeli bayanların problemleri de var tabii ki. Evlilik, boşanma, kuma olma, o da bir problem. Ve ayrımcılık, Suriyeli kadınların ve Suriyeli çocukların gördüğü ayrımcılık. Bunların da bir şekilde halledilmesi, çözümlenmesi lazım.
آخر نقطتين، الأولى أنه المجتمع المدني التركي لازم والمجتمع المدني السوري، يعني المؤسسات السورية والمؤسسات التركية تشتغل أكثر مع بعض. نحن قلنا تعاون مع بعض الجامعات والبلديات التركية لكن غير كافي. بتمنى أنه يكون في شغل أكثر. هي نقطة.
Son iki şeyden bahsetmek istiyorum. Biz iki halk olarak hükümet dışı çalışmalarımızda daha fazla beraber çalışmalıyız. Yani organizasyonlu bir şekilde, organize bir şekilde halklar arası üniversiteler nezdinde, projeler nezdinde ve araştırma merkezleri nezdinde çalışmamız lazım.
آخر نقطة صون نقطة، العائلات السورية والتركية لازم يكونوا مع بعض. ممكن كتير هن ما يستنوا الجمعيات لتشتغل، هن يتعاونوا مع بعض ويصير في بيناتهم علاقات. هذه الطريقة أفضل للاندماج.
Son noktam, Türk ailelerle Suriyeli aileler organizasyonları beklemesinler, kimseyi beklemesinler. Hiçbir topluluğu, hiçbir toplumsal olayı beklemeden birbirini tanısınlar, birbiriyle iç içe girsinler ve konuşsunlar, birbiriyle tanışık olsunlar.
Teşekkür ederim.
Ben çok teşekkür ederim. Okay. Thank you very much for all our speakers. Maysa, I loved your speech, and you focused and you underlined some of points which is very important for Turkish government, for Turkish society, and also for Syrian society. I think, as we are sharing the same religion, we have the idea being muhajir is very important. So if the word being refugees hurting you, then we are going to use migrants. It's that fine, or muhajir. Okay, so and integration, of course, the point was really very important, because of 6 years is over. Now is the time improving integration policies, making two different societies come together, share the same culture, share the same education and political identities. Political lives also, because most of the time we are without political improvements or political legal amendments. You cannot improve your lives, you cannot establish new policies. The other thing, of course, there are different type of NGOs in Turkey working on the same issues, not only refugee, not only Syrian women-oriented organizations. For example, Kadın, we are Turkish women, and we are focusing on your problems. We are trying to decrease your mental and psychological and economical problems. How we can help, how we can be stand on your, how we can take the burden off your shoulders. Most of the time in our center, really you can believe in us, and also you can deliver this to your society, that Turkish society, Turkish women NGOs are caring about you. And one thing I would like to put on your speech, Luciana, you said that was very good point. You said none of the individual countries can solve this problem. We have to come together and force the international organizations and make them cooperate and contribute solutions to Syrian migrants' problems. That is, I believe this too. That is not only Turkey problem, or that is not only European problem. That is a human problem. That is a human dignity problem. Most of the international communities are taking this issue as a bargaining between states, but this is far away, more than bargaining issue between states, between countries and borders. So as an NGO, we have a responsibility to force international institutions to make cooperation and take this issue not only bargaining, that instead of bargaining, taking this issue as human rights issue. Probably then we can win and we can build win-win situation. Thank you very much. Now I would like to present our plates that you can remember this panel. Zeynep, you come all over the world.
Netken tattың ай, жарасқаны қинайды, едім түзумің жатпен